Welcome to Beyond the Network Marketing Dream, where we go beyond the hype and head behind the scenes with industry leaders and experts. Join us for new insights, strategies, and smart discussions about building successfully in today's world.
Well, welcome everyone. Patrick Shaw here with Michael Oliver from Natural Selling. And Michael, it is great to be with you. Thanks for joining us on Beyond the Network Marketing Dream today.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, Patrick.
As always, we got to have a little bit of a chat beforehand, and I found out a lot already. So I'm excited about diving in. And maybe the best place, Michael, you coach in a lot of different industries. The natural selling process today, but you actually know quite a bit about the network marketing industry. And why don't you share a little bit of your background just to open up here?
Yeah, sure. In fact, I started out in the network marketing industry from the point of view of training and coaching. And in fact, I have a best-selling book called How to Sell Network Marketing Without Fear, Anxiety, or Losing Your Friends. And there is an exclamation mark at the end of that as well. So, I wrote that sort of a couple of years after I was into it, when network marketing discovered me. When I turned around and said, no, I don't think so. But somebody convinced me that I should go and do some training. And I realized that something that I was giving was probably really needed. So I enthusiastically embraced network marketing and started training and coaching people.
And you said in some circles that the book was a bit controversial because I think you saw some of the bad approaches that were taking place in the network marketing industry. Can you drill down on that just a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's start off by saying I'm very contrary. I question everything. I question absolutely everything. I question even the stuff that I do and the stuff that I think. You know, it's an adjustment all the time. So I'm quite a critical thinker from that point of view. And what I saw was that there are more people being turned away from network marketing by people who are approaching them in such a way that was sort of almost like adversarial or didn't touch where they were coming from. They weren't asking the right types of questions. And so, you know, and the constant thing was about the 80-20 rule, you know, that 80% people will, 20% won't. And so my argument was, well, in sales, especially in network marketing, is that the 80-20% rule. What if you looked at it like this, is that 80% people won't, but what if it is that they could, but they won't do it? They won't do what the other 20% do. And the other 20% is actually less than that. It's about 5%. Even if that, of people have a driver type personality. In other words, they will plow through. They set their mind on something and they will do it. Doesn't matter what they do, how they do it, what they say, how they say it. They will continue. They'll pick up the phone and they make dozens of phone calls every day. They'll go and talk with people every day. And so the whole sales industry, not only just network marketing, was really focused on that type of personality. And so consequently, when you look at the other three types of personalities, is that most of the people within that type find it unacceptable to go out and talk with people in the same way. And so I worked out how they could approach people comfortably and effectively and engage people and be able to enroll more people in a less amount of time with no friction, no anxiety, no tension. Obviously, there's a bit of tension when you first start out. You know, there's a little bit there, but basically eliminate that. And that's the whole focus of natural selling, is to be able to communicate quickly with people and without any friction, without any tension.
And how much of that is philosophical versus the how-to, like the words itself? And do you teach it more from one perspective or the other, or meeting in the middle between the philosophy and the words, if you follow me?
Yeah, I do follow you. And in fact, that's a really important part of it, because, you know, people talk about skill set. A lot of people will say to me, so tell me how to do this, or explain to me how to do this. And so, right, I can do that. That's a skill set. The most important thing, though, is your mindset, is that you got to have the thinking in place. to understand it. Because I can teach you so-called techniques, but that's all they'll be. They'll be techniques, and you'll technique people. And from my point of view, my world, I don't like techniquing people. I don't like manipulating people, for example. And so the mindset is very important. And the mindset word, though, is so overused insofar as it's interpreted in a lot of different ways, such as, getting out of the box and so on, the rules. And I used to teach this, it's a long time ago, that the rules of life are written on the outside of the box. And if you're on the inside, you can't see them. And it's the people on the outside who are happy and having a lot of fun know the rules on the outside. Well, in recent years, I was rethinking that, saying, well, wait a second, what if there's no box? What if you can just eliminate that box completely and start so obviously you're thinking, but stop thinking, stop thinking about all the stuff that's preventing you. And so the mindset is really based on principles. I have 5 different principles, 5 natural selling principles. And it is a philosophy. But it's the philosophers who win every time. We tend to forget about that. If you understand the philosophy, the skills, how to do it is really easy, because you just layer everything on top of the philosophy. But the first thing also is to understand, and I wrote a book about this called How to Sell the Way People Buy, which you can get online, which is about the 3 main causes of resistance. In fact, it's called, that title is 3 main causes of objections and rejection. And if you're doing any one of those 3 things, you're going to create resistance. And so the key is to stop doing those, stop doing what you're being told to do, start rethinking and start working from a different set of parameters. And those parameters are 5 principles, 5 natural selling principles. And they work. They're not techniques. They're straightforward principles, universal principles.
Now, a more complicated, difficult question maybe, but you take those 5 principles, which we can touch on, but you take those 5 principles, and now we live in this digital world, right? And it's created a bit of a quandary for the network marketing world, because network marketers are about relationships, person to person, and the digital world, internet marketers are trying to hide behind all the digital tools. The network marketer has to have digital tools, but they can't hide behind them. They still have to rely on the relationship. So my question within that context is, can you tell me how those 5 principles, are being applied or any differently because of the digital world we live in, if that makes sense?
So are you talking about establishing initial connection in that digital world, or actually?
Yes. So like in our platform, we have a mobile first strategy, and I might reach out to somebody and we try to do, I think, some of the things you're going to talk about. So instead of trying to pitch them or send them a video about a company or product, it's just listening. It's doing discovery, we call it. It would be, hey, I'd love to get your feedback. If I sent you a 1-minute survey, I'm doing a little market research. Would you check it out for me on whatever industry, real estate, skincare, whatever? Well, that gives me a chance to start having a conversation, do some discovery, and see who I'm talking to. And I'm just wondering if you're dealing much in the digital world, or you're applying those 5 philosophies to once they meet face to face, or are you trying to apply some of them? I guess that's my question.
Yeah. The digital world makes it a little bit more of a challenge than when you're talking with someone, even talking with a stranger. I mean, talking with strangers probably more easy. It's easier than applying in the digital world. But in the digital world, though, I think you have to. Well, there's various ways of doing it. I think the questionnaire process is an interesting one. At some stage or another, though, you've got to get into conversation, whether you are in conversation, whether you do it digitally or whether you do it verbally. One of the best ways is to switch it, if possible, to verbal conversation, because that's where the rubber meets the road, as it were. But first, you've got to attract their attention, and the attention is, to my mind, it can be manifold, because there are things that people want, there are things that people need, and fundamentally, we're looking for not so much material things, such as money, but what money will do for us, what so freedom will do for us, what sort of having time will do for us. I think that the opening digital sort of strategy, if it can be phrased in such a way that it registers with somebody in an emotional way.
So Michael, let me give because it's hard for you to know about our technology, but let me give you an example that I think you'll immediately relate to. And what would you tell this person to do? I used to love LinkedIn because it was this great community of like-minded people and they'd reach out. And now, as you know, it's all this automation. So somebody sends me a message in LinkedIn and it says, "Hey, Patrick, I love what you guys are doing at RapidFunnel in the SaaS space. It's really interesting how you're approaching your customers, and we have similar customers." And they give this whole generic thing, and you can tell, nothing about me, nothing about my customer, and you're sending a bulk email. And this is what people are doing. They're trying to connect, but they're doing it in such a bulk fashion that it's obviously inauthentic. What do you tell that person? Like,
what would I usually don't tell that person anything. Well, from my point of view, where I get those emails 2 or 3 every day, people who want to sell me their service, their product, how they can outreach me much more powerfully, and so on and so forth. And most of them are very crude, because all they do is they tell me about what they can do for me, but they don't ask me if I'm looking for that. I mean, a very simple thing is that such as, if you're looking for whatever it is and outlining it out, and to make your life easier, we might be able to help you. Here's a little bit about what we can do. If this is of interest to you, please get back to me. If someone does that, I reply. I will say, if it's interesting, I'll talk with them. If it's not interesting, I say, thank you very much for asking me. It's not something that I need at this moment, and just leave it there. And they'll reply. The ones that come straight in, full force, telling me what they do, I just put them into junk mail. And if it keeps on coming in, then I block it. Because they're not honoring me as a person. What they're coming from is from this whole consumer attitude. For example, I'll give you an idea with regards about honoring me as a person. I refuse to call anyone a prospect. Everyone I train them away from using the word prospect. And when we start off, they say, "Well, why?" I said, "Well, let me ask you this. How would you feel if I called you a prospect?" And they get it at that point. I said, how would you feel being called a consumer? I said, we're not consumers. We're not prospects. We're people. Nietzsche, German philosopher, once said, when you brand me, you negate me. I'm very careful not to negate people. Very careful not to brand people. And so it's really about where are they coming from. If they're not coming from where I'm coming from, or at least giving an attempt. I don't need them to understand me fully because they don't know who I am. But at least attempt, then I don't respond. So one of the key things is really how do you set that message that comes from a genuine place of wanting to help, as opposed to that place of wanting to sell something.
That's beautiful. That is awesome. Maybe it's worth just having you touch on what are the 5 principles of natural selling.
Yeah, sure. Be fine.
I know that's hard and short, but they can get an idea and have more context for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The first principle is about detachment, and it comes from the law of detachment. If you're familiar with Deepak Chopra's work, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, 7 laws there. And in fact, I'm a certified trainer with Chopra. In the 7 Spiritual Laws of Success in the Workplace. I took a course many years ago when I discovered his book actually matched with what I'd written in my book, what I was training. Actually, I hadn't written the book then. I was just training it at the time. And it's really about detachment, law of detachment, of letting go. And the biggest thing you can do, letting go as a network marketer or salesperson, is letting go of all your needs. I mean, I'm talking about every single need that you can think of. Just detach. It's a wonderful freeing experience once one understands that. And so some specific examples are letting go of your need to tell, letting go of your need to explain, letting go of your need to educate, letting your need to go, letting your need to present, letting your need to be right, letting go of all those needs starts putting you into a very neutral position, because your needs are an energy, and it's very hard to hide that when you're talking with someone. So if you have a need to sell or need to get someone in your organization, or even if you feel that they're the right person, I used to hear that a lot. No, this person would be great if they would just understand what was going on. And my response then was, well, is it about them understanding, or is it about you understanding them? You know, is it about understanding where they're coming from? So that's the first principle, letting go. The second,
I can't help but think of the value of that for the average parent too, right? As parents, we tend to want to educate, show that we're right, explain. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so number two.
Okay, number two. Number two is this, and it really stems from a question. I'm going to ask you this question, and I'm going to ask you to say the very, very first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, don't even think about it. First thing that comes to mind, and I'll explain why in a moment. What's the purpose of a business, any business in the world? What's the purpose?
Create value.
Create value. That's a really great answer. A lot of people will say about making money or making a profit or something like that. And in fact, the purpose of a business in my world is not about any of that at all. It's about helping people solve their problems. So the first principle is that natural selling is helping people solve their problems or to get what they want, need, or desire. And it's a massive mind shift. This is where the mindset comes in. Massive mindset shift, because it turns the whole aspect of selling on its head, because the objective is not to get the sale. The objective is to discover if there is a sale to be made, or be more precise, is to discover if in fact that there is something that this person can buy to make a difference in their life.
And it works so hand in hand with detachment, because the minute you start doing that, it allows you to detach, because you're not hung to a result that you can't control.
Precisely. That precisely wraps it up. Really, that's a really good way of summing it. Yeah. So when anyone says about making money or whatever, okay, that's their objective, and it's a yin yang thing. It's a balance. Insofar as you have to achieve your objective. I mean, you're here in this life to do things, achieve objectives. At the same time, it's about how do you go about it. And if you're forcing your objectives through, then force very rarely works. It will work, but very rarely works. However, if you exchange that whole mindset into thinking, well, the business is not about me. The business is about other people. And I can prove that too by saying that if your business, if what you have to sell, whether it's a product or a service, doesn't help someone solve a problem of some sort, then is there any reason for them to do business with you? Is there any reason for them to buy from you? And the answer is no. So who's the business really all about? The business is about them. And it's about finding out what it is they want and why they want it, and so on and so forth. So that's a really important aspect of the mind shift. The first two principles are basically about massive mind shift. And that's what I talk about, mind shift.
Okay, and number three.
Number three then is, well, how do you go about doing this? How do you go about finding out what people want? That's a question for you as well, Patrick.
So is that the how-to phase? Is that the
this is the
strategy and technique?
Yeah, this is the philosophy. This is the principle.
It's questions, I suppose.
It's questions, yeah. But
here's questions.
Here's the key. It's asking very precisely. Is asking the right types of questions at the right time. And the underlining word is types. And in my world, in the discovery stage, there are 7 different types of questions. And it's a matter of understanding those different types of questions that will allow you to help a person reach inside themselves to work out what it is they want and why they want it. You see, if you know how to ask the right questions at the right time, what happens is that a person will answer you, and it has to be questions which are not intimidating, they're not interrogating, they're conversational. That's why it's called natural selling conversational dialogue, because dialogue comes from Socrates. Socrates was the first person who mastered the art of dialogue, and dialogue has to do with letting go. Dialogue has to do with allowing people to find out things for themselves. Dialogue is not about telling people, not about educating people. It's about asking questions, allowing them to tell themselves and educate themselves. So the rationale behind this is that when you ask someone a question and they answer you, who else apart from you hears them speak? Who else?
They hear themselves speak.
Precisely. They hear themselves. As they hear themselves, who else is feeling what it's like to be in their present situation or answering that question?
They are.
They do. So if you're feeling it, who is the person that's persuading themselves that perhaps they might need to look at what their present situation is all about?
They are.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if I was to ask you a series of questions like this, and they're really simple, it's saying sort of, who knows what they want?
I do.
You do. Okay. Okay. So this points at you. Who knows what you want? You do. Who knows why you want it?
I do.
Who knows what you've done about getting it?
I do.
Who knows whether it's worked or not?
I do.
Who knows how you feel where you are right now?
I do.
Who knows the possible consequences of you not doing it?
I probably do.
Yeah,
possible. I mean, you may know some of the consequences better than I do, but I know some of them.
Some of them, yeah. Who knows whether you're inclined to do it or not?
I do.
Yeah. Who knows whether it's important to you or not? See, you have all the answers. Not all of them necessarily, because if you have problems, then you haven't asked certain questions which you might not have been aware of. And it's our job to help people to go through that process. It's a very, very simple process, not complicated at all.
I cannot help but think about, Carol Dweck's work on delayed gratification with children.
Yeah.
And children that can't delay gratification, they have to eat. They'd rather have one piece of candy right now than 3 pieces in 10 minutes and then they link it to success. And I can't help but link it to that. Like it's the salesperson that's so anxious and quick to get to a result. They don't have the patience to just ask the questions, take the Socratic method, be patient enough to allow people to discover the answer for themselves. It's almost like it's an immaturity that leads us to do you want to buy now?
Yeah. And that's why of the 3 reasons why you get objections and rejection is that the standard way of talking with people is to make a quick presentation.
Yeah.
And one of them, for example, network marketing, if you look at that, is to say, I just found an amazing company or found something that's really made a big difference in my life or whatever. It's all about me. And let's have coffee or let's go and talk or whatever it is. And it's got nothing to do with us. It's to do with the other person.
It's amazing to me. Like, I know better than this. I know exactly what you're saying. And I do reflect on some of my own presentations recently, like enterprise level. And I get into that same expediency. Like you feel like it's quicker just to explain it than it is to let them discover it for themselves, which is, knowledge is not necessarily power, because I know this, and I still get caught in the trap recently.
Yeah, we all do. I mean, even in this interview, I'm doing quite a lot of explaining. If we had more time, I'd be turning what I know more into questions, which is why every now and then I try to flip it into because it's more powerful. Questions are involve people. Questions literally involve people, as opposed to presenting and telling does not. But sometimes it's expedient. Sometimes you have to sort of go with what we're doing.
And I guess if Michael, let me ask one question, then we'll go to number 4. But is if you know the customer needs it, wants it, and they're going to get it. Now, I don't know if I'm asking this because I'm looking for an excuse to cheat sometimes and just explain it. But if you know you have the right target audience, and this comes back to some degree of target market fit, and all they need to do is see it, and you are trying to spend a half hour instead of an hour because questions take time, is that a justification in doing it this way, or does it?
Well, I don't think it's necessarily right or wrong to it, except it's not something I would necessarily do. So, for example, if I knew that there was a right fit here and there was leaning towards this, I would still probably, not always, because there's nothing really definitive about this. I'd probably still go into questioning mode. Now, the interesting thing about it, you said about asking questions instead of spending an hour, spend half an hour, is that asking questions can be very, very fast. There's a misconception that asking questions take a long time, but in fact, it cannot. It does not. It can do if you want to go quite deeply into it. It takes no longer than trying to present something to someone and then trying to persuade them to go through it. Such as using closing techniques, which only upsets people, and then trying to respond to any questions or concerns they have as objections to be overcome, when all they're doing is asking a question or expressing a concern. And by treating it as an objection to overcome, all you're doing is pushing back on them and telling them they're wrong. All this stuff, creates resistance. And so the whole point is that questions are very, very powerful. And so I'd lean towards questions most of the time. Now, one of the fundamental things to do with regards to presenting or knowledge is, one of the key things is to turn your knowledge into questions whenever you can. So, for example, I could have said to you just then, so Patrick, would you like to know one of the key things about slowing down on presenting and almost eliminating presenting as much as you can? See, I would have asked you that question, and you would have gone, well, yeah, why not? Because it's of interest to you, because we're on the same tune. And so, well, one of the things you could do is to use your knowledge to ask questions instead of telling. In other words, turn what you know into asking questions. So I can set it up as a question, and then I can give you the answer if you're open to it. If you're not open to it, then I'm fine. I'm detached from it. It doesn't matter to me. I'll let it go.
No, I'm totally with you. That's such a good, because it doesn't take any longer, and you're actually making sure that they're engaged the whole time.
Well, you are, because by doing that two-step approach, asking the question, getting permission. In other words, now they're inviting you to give them the answer, and then you give the answer, embeds it into the subconscious, because it has meaning. If I tell you something, you can doubt me. If you tell yourself, you'll believe it.
It's really fascinating. We have a feature on our platform that solves this problem in network marketing of every leader gets to the end of a call with a bunch of guests on a Zoom and says, get back to the person that invited you.
Yeah.
And these are the worst words in network marketing. Our platform solves it. But instead of me telling them, it would be so easy to say, hey, when you get to the end of a presentation, what words do you use? And then they say it. And sometimes I do that, but then I could follow up by saying, and what happens to the person watching that presentation? I almost said prospect, Michael. What happens to the person watching the presentation? What do they do when they go away? And then let them tell me exactly what they do and all the problems associated with it. And it doesn't take that much longer, and it keeps them engaged. I can't help but think about how to apply. This is really good. Okay, let's talk about step number 4.
Okay. Step number 4 has to do with listening. And it's the most important skill that you can master. It's on par with asking questions. You also got to listen, and you have to actively listen. So the question is, do you think most people listen?
No,
they don't. What are most people doing? Well, when someone, let's say they ask a question, let's say a network marketer or salesperson asks a question,
They hear it, and then they prepare their response.
yeah. In other words, they're busy working out what they want to say next.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what most people do. They're busy working out what they want to say next. And they miss the essence of what the other person is saying. And what the other person is saying isn't always what they're meaning. And so you're missing everything. So there's the fourth principle in a nutshell is listening to what is being meant as well as what is being said. Meant is emotional, subjective. Said is logical. So if I was to say to you, so for example, if you were to ask someone, what would make a difference in your life, if anything, you said a new car. Okay, that's something that's being said. And I say, so what's a new car important to you about? Why is a new car important to you? Well, I'm very frustrated with the fact that I can't the transit is always late. It's never on time, whether I'm going to work or going home, and I'm usually late. And, I'm really, really concerned about the fact that if I turn up late anymore, my boss is going to fire me. Okay. That's the meaning behind getting the car.
Right.
It's got nothing to do with the car. I mean, it has to do with the car, but it's the meaning behind the car. And I kind of made all that up a little bit there, but essentially
that's great. And now I can drill down from there and start to find out, since I know it's not about the image, you immediately told me it's not about the fanciest car or the most expensive car, probably. It's about a solution that's outside of the car completely.
Because I'm concerned that I'm going to lose my job. And underlying the factor there are things like, if I lose my job, I'm the breadwinner in the house, I've got 2 kids, and so on, and there's a lot of underlying factors which are there, which if you ask will be revealed. But the whole point is the motivation is not about getting the new car. Somebody else, it could be entirely different. And that's why presenting or telling someone what you think they should know very rarely works, because you're guessing. You're absolutely guessing.
I love it. And I remember Brian Tracy saying once, it's something to the effect of, and I've never forgotten the concept, is just being able to say, hey, can you tell me more? Or how do you mean that? Like, it's amazing how people always, I was almost uncomfortable the first times I said it, because I'm like, they're going to be like, well, what do you mean? I just told you. And they don't. They go, oh, I'll tell you more. Here's how I mean it. And they'll break it down for you just by asking. And one of the things that I love about what you're doing is this is a training from a network marketing perspective that it's not above people's understanding. Like, it's really relatively simple, and it applies to their whole life, not just sales, but relationships or raising kids right?
Everything is all about listening to what is being meant as well as what is being said.
It's awesome. Okay, number 5.
This we go though. Active listening, open listening, because everything that's being said is all there in that sentence, and most people miss it. Sit in a coffee shop and listen to 2 people talking with each other, and you'll find that there's 2 conversations going on. I read about this in my first book, How to Sell Network Marketing, about 2 ladies talking with each other about the hairdresser, and one says, yes, he listens. He says, yeah, but he's very expensive, isn't he? And the other one says, yes, but he listens so divinely.
I just love that. I'm at a club here, and I go to the gym, and I had bought a package with this trainer, and I changed my mind because I was still going to the gym before I had engaged in the package. And I listened to him for the 3rd morning in a row talk about his drive, his food, his apartment, and I couldn't get over the sense that, like, I don't want to pay you to be your therapist.
Yeah.
Right. It was amazing to me. And I know it's a rudimentary thing, relative to what you're teaching, but even how to win friends and influence people. I just wanted to drop the book off to them and be like, hey, you're in the sales business, actually.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, listening is really sort of a critical component on this. Because if you listen carefully, a person can feed you a lot of information. They can give you anything from 1 to 5 items in a one sentence. And that allows you to pick one or all those 5 items to expand upon. See, asking questions isn't just learning the types of questions wise. It's also your questions are coming from the information that a person gives you. So if you care to listen, if you want to listen.
So is active listening one of the biggest challenges I see is that people, they ask the first question, and because they're not active listening, they don't, or even if they're active listening, they're not almost ready to ask the next question. Does that take some practice, doesn't it? Even if you're trying to actively listen, but if you're not used to knowing the next best question to ask, because you can't give them 7 questions to ask. As you know, if you're really good at this, the next question changes based on how they answered your first question. Do you address that at all, and how to coach them through that?
Yeah, in fact, there is a structure that I worked out many years ago, and it's about how to find a person's buying blueprint and help them find their buying blueprint with 5 to 7 questions.
And that's something they can learn in your program. If somebody were interested, they could learn what that structure is.
Absolutely. And what it does, here's what it does. It allows a person to reveal to you. It's like laying out, it's like getting a menu of their buying blueprint, and it's their unique menu, as it were. And what it reveals is their logical, their personal logical, and their emotional and subjective reason why they want something. If in fact they do want something, let's say they reveal. So the first question you ask is to find out if there's something missing. I mean, that's really the key. The difference, a problem is really a difference between what someone has and what they want. If they have what they want, they don't have a problem. If they don't have what they want, they have a problem. And people will tell you that very rapidly in one question. They'll tell you what that problem is. It's just the way that you phrase it. And so there's a sequence of questions that you can ask, which will allow them to reveal very quickly their logical, their personal logical, and their emotional subjective buying blueprint. And then some more questions to ask to solidify that. Once you've got that in place, then the conversation is especially in network marketing. In network marketing, actually, this process is so easy. It's far easier than in mainline marketing and normal corporate marketing.
And easier to teach, frankly.
It's easier to teach, because that's why I call it natural selling conversational dialogue, because what you're doing is you're using a Socratic approach to help a person reveal, what it is they want, why they want it, and all the feelings associated with it, which immediately establish a relationship. One of the other things about network marketing, for example, is there's always this mantra about get the relationship first, establish relationship, which to me is really upsetting because it's manipulative.
I agree. Yeah.
If your objective is to establish a relationship, so you can get to the point to sell them something, okay, then it's all about you. As opposed to, if you take this approach, from the moment you ask that first question, is that you're now already establishing the relationship. By the time you've finished, that relationship, it's got some firm foundation.
And it's a natural, honest relationship. It's not built on some pretenses of misleading or So now your curiosity's got me, but I can't help but think there's got to be some transition. And so, what is step 5? Is there I'm curious.
I think your curiosity might be leading you down the wrong path, but
I know. I kind of feel it does through you, but there does have to. So I don't want to lead. Let me just. But it does feel like there must be some transition to
Yeah,
because because people do. I don't know. I'm willing to throw myself out there, Michael, but a lot of people are afraid to ask for an order. If they've done everything correctly, they will go, "Oh, thank you," and leave. Now, I guess we could put the onus on the person to say, "No, I'd like to buy." But it seems like there should be something, but you're the expert. So tell me what number 5 is.
Okay. I've got to remember a couple of things that you said. Number 5 is very simple. It's probably not what you think it is. Number 5 is simply feeding back what you think you heard.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really, it's really about when you wrap the whole thing around in one nice tidy package and you put a bow around the 5 principles. It's really about, it's about qualification. It's about, talking with someone to find out if there's something missing that you might be able to help them provide. Okay. And if there is, and helping them helping you qualify them, see, qualification to me is another thing about natural selling. Qualifying to me is this. Qualifying is about you qualifying them to make sure that it's worth having the conversation or taking the conversation further. It's about you helping them qualify you by understanding your intention, understanding your authenticity, understanding your honesty, your empathy, that type of thing. And it's also, ironically, helping them qualify themselves.
So, I attended, no disrespect to Mr. Hopkins, but the 7 objections to closing the sale. And I think your basic argument is if you do these steps properly, you don't even have to worry about that because they're going to literally almost ask for the order. Just say, "Hey, well, this makes sense."
But you're on the right track there, because in the discovering stage, okay, there are 5 different stages in a natural selling conversation dialogue. And that the first stage is connecting, second is discovery, third is transitioning into presenting and supporting, and the last one is committing. So based on what we're saying, of those 5 stages, which do you think is the most important stage, where basically the person is buying into the idea that they should be exploring this or buying it or so on and so forth?
So the 5 that you just mentioned, they align with each of the detachment, help people solve a problem, questions. Is that correct?
No, which of those 5 stages, so do you think is the most important?
I'd say the 5 again.
Connecting.
Yeah.
Discovering. Transitioning into presenting as the 4th, and committing.
Well, I would say it's discovery.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. You're right.
Yeah.
And in the discovery stage, there are 7 different types of questions. Now, literally in network marketing, you really don't need to use all of them. They're there for guidance, understanding the types of questions to ask. Some are logical, some are emotional types of questions, feeling type of questions. So you got there's a word for it. I can't remember what it is, but anyway, there's 2 different types of questions. One is feeling type of questions, and so that's really sort of where a person buys into the idea that they really want to lean in and want to listen to some more. So discovering stage is really important. So what's happening there is that when you come to present, okay, presenting is near the end. And
that's the active listening phase, right? Presenting.
Well, the active listening phase is the act of being able to feed back what you think you heard. In other words, you're going to feed back what they told you. Your presentation is based around the fact that of what they told you. So instead of presenting what you think they should hear and guessing at what they should hear, is that if you ask them, they'll tell you everything that you need to know as to what to tell them. And you'll pull out the relevant features of your product or service, and you'll be able to explain them as specific advantages and as specific benefits. You see, the feature of anything is is the same. So, I mean, for example, like if I show you this pencil, okay, this pencil is a feature in itself. It's a pencil, it's a feature. Within this pencil, there are lots of different types of features, lots of them. And each one of them would have a different meaning to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talk about meaning, it would have a different advantage and a different, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sacrifice or
no, it's a bunch of benefit. A benefit is a feeling. Okay? It's how a person feels about something. Benefits are not understood by most people. They talk about benefits. So they talk about benefits as advantages. A lot of times they talk about benefits as features, which is incorrect. That's another story. There's something.
Yeah.
So what you're doing there and you're presenting is literally, all you're doing is merely feeding back. This is the key thing. You're feeding back to them what you had already previously agreed upon. And so the committing stage is just a natural progression into taking action on what was previously agreed upon. You already agreed upon it. Mm. Or if you didn't agree upon it, then you don't present. You don't even transition. You just bow out gracefully. Someone might be absolutely in need of what it is that you've got. But if there is no desire on their part to make a change, then is there any point in presenting? The answer is no. You detach from it.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. It's so good. I'm just thinking about it in context of so many leaders in networking, and it's really a relatively easy. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, went longer than I usually do, but we've covered a lot of ground. But just in this talk, I can see how easy it would be to convey to an organization. And it doesn't take a lot for them to, it's not the 7 objections to closing a sale, which I can no longer remember. And there were specific words to every single objection versus, right, they were so scripted versus the mindset piece, which is overused. But can I understand generally that there's a philosophy here? And if you'll just follow those 5 principles. So that's pretty cool. That's awesome, Michael. Michael, if people have more interest and they want to reach out to you, I can pull up your page here too, for natural selling. I know you had a background in the solar industry as well, and we service many companies in that space, but they can find you at naturalselling.com. Where else might they reach out to you and find your information, Michael?
Well, they could, if you want the book, How to Sell the Way People. Well, actually, just go to naturalselling.com because everything is there. I do have another website called it's naturalselling.com/book. And that book is more geared towards the network marketing book, and also a CD series which is called 12 Ways to Start Effective Conversations. So for network marketers, just go to naturalselling.com/book, and that should take you to that page. But, all roads lead to Rome anyway. But that main page, naturalselling.com, will take you to where you can roam around inside. There you go. Yes.
Yeah. And we'll put it in the show notes as well, so people have access to it and they can reach out to you and purchase the book there. And
okay,
that's fantastic. And
so the other book to really read, which goes into more specific details and gives the neuroscience behind it. I always joke that neuroscience finally caught up with me, because I was doing this stuff 25 years ago, and people would come out to me and giving me all sorts of reasons why it was working, which was neuroscience inclined. But everything I was doing was anecdotal. But now neuroscience has actually proven that this approach and what I'm doing, is 100% ratified. And so the book called How to Sell the Way People Buy, which you just go to the website and you'll get led to it, is really a very good foundational book to read. And, I'm not saying that because I think it's a good book, but I do. It does give you the background and mindset. And after that, you can make a decision as what to do. You can either contact with me directly. I have an online course, which I wouldn't recommend necessarily to network marketers, because I think it's a little bit more detailed than they need, but I would recommend it to anyone outside of network marketing.
Well, Michael, I really enjoyed the conversation, and I might be the one that benefit the most from the talk today. It reminded me of all kind of things that I need to get back to applying more diligently. And so I appreciate it a great deal. Thanks so much for spending the time with us today.
The pleasure is mine. I mean, it's fun doing this kind of thing. In fact, the hairs in the back of my neck right now are prickling up a little bit. So what I'm saying is authentic. But yeah, I love doing this. So anytime, and if I can help you in any way, you just let me know. I'm more than happy to talk with you.
Thanks so much. Cheers, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. If you know someone who would be a great guest for the show, send an email to beyondthedream@rapidfunnel.com.